We all have that person in our lives who never stops complaining. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's too salty, I'm bored. And as it turns out, in Idaho's maximum security institution, that person who complains all the time is inmate number 163214. That's him, better known as Bryan Kohberger. The other night, I shared prison reports about Coberger and how he was having a tough time in lockup. Fellow inmates were keeping him awake night and day, he said, taunting him and threatening him, making all sorts of noise. Well, tonight we've got the paperwork to prove it and a few other things he says those fellow inmates are doing to him, things that have him afraid for his life and possibly his virginity. No joke. These are the actual handwritten complaint forms that Bryan Kohberger has written and submitted to the prison officials at the maximum security institution in Idaho. And get a load of his handwriting. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. We have his full list of complaints, even specific inmates that he's complaining about and naming names. Side note, those guys are not going to get any nicer now. And as a bonus, everything is written in his own handwriting. And I'm going to tell you why that's key. We've got the top world analyst in handwriting in just a moment. He knows so much about handwriting and what it tells us, and he's got fascinating insights into what he sees on these pages. But first, what do you suppose is eating Bryan Kohberger? Where do we even start? Well, from the complaint form, Wednesday, July 30th, just 6 days after he arrived at the penitentiary, he already had problems. Quote, as I continue the SPI phase, that means segregation pending investigation phase, I wish to discuss if I may be transferred to another AD seg setting. That means segregated setting, such as B block. Not engaging in any of the recent flooding and striking, as well as being subject to minute-by-minute verbal threats, harassment. On that and other bases, Unit 2 of J block is an environment that I wish to transfer from. If possible, I request transfer to B block immediately. I wish to speak with you soon. That's very special. Coberger wants a little more comfort at the lockup where he's condemned to spend the rest of his miserable life. He even has his own recommendations about where he believes he should be moved. Isn't that nice? There was a prison captain who did reply to the quadruple murderer in writing just 2 days later, very, very politely and very professionally, I might add, saying, quote, Mr. Coberger, on any tier at the IMSI, that is the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, there are sometimes disruptions to operations, such as residents flooding. On J2, that's where Coberger is, it is a relatively rare occurrence. And J2 is generally a fairly calm and quieter tier. I do not think that B block would be any better for you. Give it some time. In short, F off, Coberger, deal with it and get used to it. You're not moving anywhere. By the way, all those things Coberger has been complaining about, apparently he's very worried about what some of the inmates have said they're going to do to him, physically and sexually. I want to get to NewsNation's Brian Entin here because Brian Entin got his hands on the actual handwritten complaints. Before I ask you to go into the specifics, just comment on the writing, because I thought I was looking at a fourth grader and I had to try to decipher what I was seeing on these handwritten forms.
Yeah, I was surprised how bad, well, I don't know, maybe surprised, not the right word. I wasn't expecting his handwriting to be so bad. He has really bad handwriting. And it was also just creepy reading these because he wrote them. I guess when I knew these were coming, I was expecting they were going to be typed out. I don't know why. And then when I got them and saw that it was his handwriting and he actually signed the bottom, I don't know why, it just kind of like bothered me in a way. But remember, Ashleigh, I toured this prison, by the way, last month. I walked through the whole thing, spent 2 hours in the prison. Yes, the inmates yell and scream and bang on the walls, and the flooding of the cells, it happens. They told me about that. They get bored and they flood their cells. They flood the sinks and the toilets. Sometimes they have to shut the water off. So it's no surprise. This is what life is going to be like at the maximum security prison. Let me read you another one of these grievances, though. This is another form that Bryan Kohberger filled out that has to do with the food, Ashleigh. Coberger writes, I have on several occasions not received all items of food on my tray. I addressed this during service and have yet to receive any replacements. In fact, the kitchen is not even called. He thinks they're going to call the kitchen for him. The policy book confirms items missing, which are pointed out at the time of service, will be replaced. I wish to, without exception, receive these replacements. And under the heading, I've tried to solve this problem informally by, then he fills that part out. Coberger wrote, addressing the issue with staff at the time of service. Then there's a part that says, I suggest the following solution for the problem. And he wrote, I wish for the items to be called for and items replaced when this occurs. The nutritional standard is not being upheld unless I've received my full tray. So he doesn't feel like he is getting the food that he requires. And by the way, they eat their meals. He's in solitary confinement, by the way, obviously. They eat their meals in the cell. They go through the door. And he says he's not getting the food that he deserves, apparently, Ashleigh.
I had a chance to have a chit-chat with Steve Gonsalves earlier today about this, Brian Entin, and as you can imagine, he and the family are enjoying the fact that Bryan Kohberger is uncomfortable. Their daughter, Kaylee, will never be able to eat anything or hear anybody yell ever again. So this is no love lost there, as you can imagine. All right, now address these personal threats, these very, very specific personal threats, and I'm just going to give a warning, not safe for work, some of the stuff we're about to talk about.
Yeah, this is the sexual harassment complaints that he has. Let me read you this one. On August 3rd, 2025, and I want to read you the whole thing so you can really understand it. On August 3rd, 2025, resident Coberger submitted a concern from staffing. He has been subject to threats and harassment, recently escalating to overt sexually violent threat statements. Lieutenant Millant received the concern form on August 4th, 2025, and conducted an interview with Coberger in J Block. Coberger stated a resident that goes by Peru told him, and I'm not going to say what it says here, BF you, basically sodomize you. Coberger also stated an unknown resident from Tier 1 of J Block said the only A**, which you can make out what that means, will be eating is Coberger's. Coberger stated that Officer Signoria was present for the comment made by Peru. Due to Officer Signoria being on B nights, an interview could not be conducted to attempt to corroborate the allegation. On August 7, 2025, Officer Signoria submitted an information report outlining his involvement of the alleged incident. Officer Signoria recalls vulgar language being used and directed toward Coberger, but could not identify who said what. The allegation is substantiated, but due to no aggressor being able to be positively identified and Coberger saying he feels safe to remain on Tier 2 in J Block, no further actions were taken, which, I mean, it's kind of like the officer knows what happened, but, I mean, come on, this is prison. This isn't jail anymore. You're in the maximum security prison in Idaho with the worst of the worst in the state. You killed 4 innocent kids. And by the way, he's in this cell by himself. So these are just things that he's hearing, whether it be through the vents or when he gets walked outside for 1 hour a day. But he has no contact with other prisoners, so it's pretty clear there's no physical threat here.
Yeah, well, I think anybody who knows even the least thing about prison is that you keep your head down and you don't start naming names like Peru, this other prisoner who he has named specifically. And, you know, guards, naming guards, that's not going to endear you to anybody either. So there you go. Only a couple weeks in prison and it's not going too well. Brian Entin, great work getting those documents. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ash.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.